Can we give the band a big hand? You will be hearing a lot more from them throughout this whole event. Good morning and welcome to the DeKalb History Center. So glad to see so many of you for this exciting event. This is our 12th annual Black History Month celebration, and we are just really delighted about the turnout. I am Melissa Forgy. I'm the center's executive director. And we are a nonprofit membership-based organization, and we really appreciate all the members who are here. We have quite a lot of you, but if you are not a member, please consider joining. It really helps us fund programs like these. While you are here, we hope that you'll check out our exhibits downstairs, particularly Deep Roots in DeKalb, the Flat Rock Story of Resistance. We have a great contingent here from the Arabia Mountain National Heritage Alliance and Johnny Waits. We could not have done that exhibit without them, and it's only here for another year, so you should stop in and check it out. Our exhibits are also open Monday through Friday from 10 to 4 and Saturdays from 10 to 2, so you can bring folks on the weekends, and they are always free of charge. We are so grateful to Tiffany Parks. I'm not introducing her yet, but just want to say a heartfelt thank you to Tiffany, who has once again really created an amazing program today. And you can already feel the energy in the room thanks to this GSU band. We're so excited. We have benefited so much as an organization and as a board and as an executive committee by having Tiffany Parks participate with us. And I think you guys should give her a round of applause too. Now we have a number of sponsors to thank. Before I tell you this, we had an internal goal of raising $10,000 in sponsorships this year. We are just $150 shy from meeting that goal. So if anyone wants to get out their wallet, I'm looking at a few of you who are absorbed in your programs, we would love that additional, we'd love to hit that $10,000 mark. But with that said, we have had a lot of support, and this event would not have been possible without sponsors. This year we got a special grant, kind of our lead grant was from the Puffin Foundation. Then as far as local folks go, we would like to thank Jim Jarboe, Atlanta Communities Real Estate, Agnes Scott College, Arabia Mountain National Heritage Area Alliance, the City of Decatur, the Champion Newspaper, Deborah DeBerry, Clerk of Superior Court, Decatur Downtown Development Authority, Judge Bedelia C. Hargrove, DeKalb County Probate Judge, State Senator Steve Henson, District 41. Can you tell it's an election year? Mindy Pillow for DeKalb County Superior Court Judge. Judge Ronald B. Ramsey Sr., Steele Program Managers with Jackie Steele, and finally our caterer, Zest Atlanta. We love Zest. Thank you guys all so much. We also couldn't do this without the support of our board of directors, our executive committee, and our trustees. We have a lot of these people here today, and we would love for all of you to stand up and be recognized. Yay! This board is really great. We really appreciate all of the support. A lot of folks have been here a short time. Some of them have been here a long time. But a nonprofit organization cannot run without its board. And I know we even have past board members here, and some of our trustees are past board members. So if you want to get involved, board service is one way to do it. Let me know. Our last order of business before I turn the program over is to recognize elected officials in the audience. And we were looking pretty hard. I am not sure. I think there is a representative here for Deborah DeBerry, Clerk of Superior Court. No? Yay, Rick. You just want to remain standing? Judge Bedelia C. Hargrove. District Attorney Sherry Boston. Yay. District Attorney Sherry Boston. Chamblee City Councilman Brian Mock. Commissioner Kathy Gannon. Judge Ronald B. Ramsey Sr., State Senator Steve Henson, Judge Stacy Heydrich, and Mayor Emerita of Decatur, Elizabeth Wilson. All right, we have a full house. Welcome so much. Thank you for coming, and I will hand the program over to Tiffany.
Good morning, everyone. You guys, my name is Tiffany Parks. You know that already, right? And we'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today. I want to thank again all of you who gave to make this program even possible. Thank you, sponsors and board members who gave and went out of your way to solicit donors. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, Melissa, for your leadership and your vision to bring diverse programming to DeKalb County. Okay, so the title of this year's program is The Jazz Age in the South, from an African American perspective. We are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Roaring Twenties, and you guys, I see a lot of flappers and crooners out in the audience. It was not only an exciting decade, but it was a very important decade as it related to African American history. So we planned an exciting program for you this year with dynamic presenters and swinging music from the award-winning GSU band. So at this time, I will introduce the program moderator, Miss LADORIS Bias-Davis. You guys all know Miss Davis. Ms. Davis is an educator and storyteller who has provided interactive storytelling programs and workshops for domestic and international audiences. Please read the rest of her bio in your program. And please help me welcome Ms. LADORIS Bias-Davis.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. It don't mean a thing. All you got to do is sing. It makes no difference if it's sweet or hard. Your guitar is everything you got. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
That's kind of weak. Hello. Hello. Welcome to the 12th annual Black History Month celebration at the DeKalb History Center. Where else? Let's give a big hand to the award-winning Georgia State University Jazz Band. Woo! Now, I must tell you, these are all young people. These are all students. It's under the directorship of Mr. Eden Mastriani Levy. With dynamite soloist Jessica Clemente. This year, we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the jazz age in the South from the African American perspective. So let's just pretend. Transport ourselves back 100 years ago to a time of extraordinary changes, as you will see on the overhead. It was a decade of prohibition. Excuse me. Prohibit that. It was a decade of technology, radio. It was a decade of women's rights. It was a decade of fashion. Behold the flapper. Now, I see some of you are wearing your jazz age outfits. Whether you are or where you are not, if you like to stand, give us a beat. We're gonna give it that old jazz age twirl. Men and women, come on, make it, come on. Don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing. Stand up, give it a twirl. This is fantastic. Well, there's nothing I like more than to spend time with my friends in a secret speakeasy. Just got word, don't panic now. Just got word that the cops will be raiding this joint in 2 hours. Woo! So, we gotta finish up by then. So without further delay, let's get this celebration started. Our opening speaker is Miss LANEICE Littleton. She is a graduate student at Clark Atlanta University. So please refer to your program for the bios of the speakers and the presenters. After Mrs. Littleton's presentation, we will hear a selection from the swinging Georgia State University Jazz Band. Right now, help me welcome Mrs. Littleton. Would you come to the podium, please?
Good morning. You all look so vibrant and brilliant and beautiful. You know, I love a good period piece. I thought everybody was gonna be dressed up. I did the best that I could. So, you know, I'm giving you 1920s historian, you know, because that's what I am. It's definitely a great honor and pleasure to be here with you this morning. Before I get started, I want to extend a very, very, very special thank you to the DeKalb History Center and specifically to Miss Sister Tiffany Parks, who has worked so hard on this for months. Let's give her another round of applause because she is extraordinary and she works hard. She'll call you in the middle of the night. She'll text you at 3 a.m. She's trying to get it done. So huge shout outs to her. So of course it's Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. And to get started, I want to talk a little bit about Black History Month and why we're here. The 20s was such a revolutionary period in America, particularly for African Americans. And it's in 1926 that Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded what was then Negro History Week. He founded Negro History Week in 1926 as a celebration of the contributions of African Americans to American history and really to world history and human culture and development. Black History Month, or Negro History Week, is in February in honor of the birthdays of the great Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. And the intention of Black History Month, again, is to be a celebration. So those of us who are historians, we do the business of history year-round, but February is our opportunity as a community to come together and to celebrate. And I am so happy to be here to celebrate with you today. So the 1920s was a critical time in American history and African American history. And it's during the 1920s that we see a lot of different things happen. The 20s is most often associated with what we call the Great Migration or the Great Negro Migration, where we see between 1918 and 1970, about 6 million African Americans who leave the South, where they've been for generations, and relocate to northern communities in search of better opportunities, job opportunities, and really to escape Jim Crow and the racial violence of the South. So the migration is very important, as Tiffany and I spoke about on the radio the other day. If you haven't heard that, I'm sure we have the link. You've got to hear that. That was an amazing experience. But most often we associate the 1920s with the Harlem Renaissance. But what we don't talk about is how the majority of the folks who were participating in the Harlem Renaissance have roots in the South. They are from the South. So what the Great Migration did in a way was kind of created a brain drain, right? We took all of this brilliance and all of this excellence and all of this artistry from the South and transplanted it in the North. So we talk about the Harlem Renaissance a lot, particularly when we talk about individuals like Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, a very important figure. In 1920, he published Dark Water, which was a very controversial text and was an outward call to what we would later call, a few years later, the New Negro. Which was put forth by Alain Locke, Dr. Alain Locke, which was not a new concept, but what Dr. Locke was saying as a writer, as an educator, as a philosopher, was that the new Negro, the new generation of African Americans, will be one who were outwardly fighting for their freedom, who were outward about their protest against injustice and inequality, and that they would be a politically minded and self-conscious and self-determining force. This gives way to a lot of the cultural movement that we see in the 1920s coming out of areas like Harlem, which was small and concentrated. We show Harlem a lot of love, but a lot of that is because it was such a small area with such a large concentration of African Americans. However, just as art and poetry and music and everything was flourishing in Harlem, it was also flourishing in the South in cities like Atlanta, which is also very important to keep in mind, particularly in places like Auburn Avenue, where there were several dozen African American owned businesses and shops and post office and churches, and we were really thriving as a community on Auburn Avenue. Also very important during the 1920s in Atlanta was the Atlanta University Center, so shout out to us. We still going, we going strong. We've been going strong for quite some time now. The Atlanta University Center consisted at the time of Atlanta University, which was the nation's oldest graduate institution for African Americans. I'm getting a PhD there hopefully this year, so it's an honor to be in that legacy, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much. It's also home to what was Clark College at the time. Atlanta University and Clark College were consolidated in the late 80s to become what is now Clark Atlanta University. It was also home during the 1920s to Morehouse College, Spelman College, and Morris Brown College. So what we saw was an intellectual revolution that was also taking place in Atlanta in the context of the Atlanta University Center. Also very important during the 1920s in Atlanta, particularly 1929, was the birth of the great Dr. Martin Luther King, the son of Atlanta, which is very important because essentially the attitudes of the new Negro as put forth by Dr. Du Bois, by Dr. Alain Locke in the 20s, is really what gave birth to the modern civil rights movement that we would see in the 1960s, especially the Atlanta student movement that we would see coming out of the Atlanta University Center. Also very important was Ma Rainey, the mother of the blues, who called Georgia, particularly Columbus, Georgia, her home. She got started in Georgia at a talent show. She later traveled with Louis Armstrong and the Georgia Jazz Band. So very important that we recognize that the 1920s was very important in the North and the South, but like Outkast said, the South got something to say too. So it's very important that we pay attention to the contributions of African Americans in the South when we take a step back and look at our history. Lastly, I want to say that, like the old saying goes, I know it's very cliche, history repeats itself. And so it's very important for us to take a step back in this current moment, 100 years later, and to look at a lot of the art that was produced as a result of the Jazz Age, as a result of the New Negro movement, the Harlem Renaissance, the Jazz Age in the South, and really see where we stand. Because what you'll see is that a lot of the issues that we were facing as a community during the 1920s are the same issues that we're facing contemporarily in the 2020s. However, with that being said, it was a vibrant and amazing time, and I'm sure that the 2020s will be just that. So again, thank you so much for having me, and happy Black History Month.